Hi, I'm a little boy. As some of you may know, I just got in a new relationship. His name is Gale from Baldursgate. He's the love of my life. He doesn't let me cheat on him unless I do it accidentally, and sometimes he questions my wisdom. But despite all that, I love him, and he inspires me to be good. So I was thinking, most of our videos have been about bad things that are creepy and kind of a bummer. And probably too many of them are about people doing weird things to dead bodies. But now that I have a boyfriend, my life is good, and so I wanted to talk about something more uplifting to make people happy. Because now I don't really feel the need to make people feel as sad as I did. This one's gonna be a really beautiful love story where a guy does cute things to a dead body. So now, let me ask you, what's the greatest love story of all time? Is it 8 Mile? No, that's a bad guess. That was a really bad guess. You're a bad person, nobody likes you, every insecurity you have is right. The actual greatest love story of all time is the story of Georg Carl Tanzler and his hot Latina dead girl wife. So I have to start with the background of Georg Carl Tanzler, because the girl is not important. So George was born in 1877 in Germany, and for the first few years of his life, he was a baby. But then later on, he grew up to be just a normal German guy. So imagine a German person and how they're normal. He was like that. There wasn't anything that significant or interesting about his early childhood. He was just a normal boy into boy stuff like electricity and chemical experiments and ghosts and trying to fly and the secrets of the universe and all that kind of bullshit. He also really liked to build stupid things. When he was in high school, he was building a glider plane, which he would take and test out in the park. But every time he went there, there'd be a bunch of girls who'd make fun of him and call him plain idiot. So he stopped going there during the day and started going there later on at night. But then when he went there at night, a bunch of dogs would come out and try to bite him. So he just had to stop trying to build the plane for now. He built like 100 different machines and contraptions and stuff. I was gonna go into it, but this video is too long and I don't care. He just built too many things, but other than that, there was nothing wrong with him. Later on in his life, he started to become an adult, and for a brief period, he was between the ages of 18 and 35. During this time, he was eligible to be diagnosed with a psychotic disorder. He wasn't. That's unrelated to the story. I don't even know why I mentioned that. So, moving on. One day, he was building something stupid when he noticed one of his pencils just start rolling around on his desk and it fell onto the floor. He started going over to pick it up, but before he could do that, he saw his matchbox come to life and grow legs and start walking around on the table. And then a bunch of books started flying around like birds, and then his entire desk was floating, and to make everything worse, everything was catching on fire. This was all starting to really bother him because he was in the middle of trying to build something that didn't work, and this was making it a lot harder to do that. These fucking pencils keep walking around on legs. Well, what's he supposed to do? So he grabbed his gun and he said to the pencils, "Hey, can you be chill instead of annoying?" And the pencils said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to be annoying." And then everything fell back down and went back to normal. Yeah, so he said the house he lived in was haunted by a white woman. She would just do stuff to fuck with him sometimes. do some white woman type shit, like being annoying. You fellas, you know. But there was one time that she actually came to talk to him instead of doing a prank that was kind of funny, but not really. So she came to him and she said, "Hey," and he said, "Oh, what's up?" And she said, "I noticed you've been doing a lot of science shit instead of having sex with women, and I'm afraid that it might be making you weird. So I think that you need to get some pussy." And George said, "Oh, yes, yeah, I would like that. Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm ready." And she said, "No, not me. Not with me. I don't want to have sex with you. It's this girl. It's this girl that I want you to have sex with." And the white woman stepped aside, and behind her was the hottest Latina baddie George had ever seen. The girl didn't say anything, but she smiled at him. So George smiled back, and he said, "Ooh, mama, giving me a dang boner-rooney. A boing hot dog, let me honk ya." And then the white woman chimed in, and she said, "Stop. You're gonna need to stop doing that. This is why you're not having sex." And then, just like that, her and the hot Latina señorita disappeared. She was just gone. And after that, she was all he could think about. And now he had to find her. He thought, where would I go to find a really hot Latina? So while he was in Italy, he went to Italy, by the way. I don't know why. I think he got confused. But while he was in Italy, he was hanging out in a cemetery one day, normal style. There, he saw a statue of a lady, and he thought, wow, she is hot. She must be that same girl because she was also dead and hot. While he was trying to figure out a way to discreetly jack off in this very public cemetery, the statue girl came to life. He said to her, "Good morning, my lady," because that was Riz at the time. And the statue ghost girl didn't respond and just walked away. This was pretty weird because he rizzed her and was really good at it. So why did she walk away instead of sucking him off? He started walking around the cemetery and asking all the grieving families, "Hey, have you seen this really hot, transparent ghost girl walking around anywhere?" But nobody saw her. This made him so sad that he got malaria from being sad. He said, "I hate Italy. Everyone here is bisexual and mid. I'm leaving and I'm going to the place with the hottest women in the world, Florida." He went to Florida and started working as a pathologist and x-ray specialist. He had no experience in this kind of work, but that's okay. Doctors don't really need to know how to be doctors. So he was doing that for some amount of time. I don't really know how long. I think I wasn't paying attention. Then on April 22nd, 1930, while he was doing his doctor stuff, he was pretty sure that he was doing doctor stuff, but all of a sudden, he saw her, the hot Latina, and she wasn't even a ghost this time. He could hardly believe it. Her name was Elena Milagro de Hoyos. That's a Latina name. He said the first thing he noticed about her were her ears were really sexy and her hands were small. She was perfect. He saw one of the other doctors going over to get blood samples from her. So he quickly ran over and pushed him down the stairs because he wanted to be the one to do that. He wanted to take her blood because that would make her fall in love with him. But he couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Maybe she wasn't sick and was faking it to get his attention. Or maybe because he didn't test the blood, he just kept it and took it home for himself. But since he didn't know what it was, he just had to guess. So he spun the disease wheel and it landed on tuberculosis. So she had tuberculosis. But the issue is the hospital didn't have the equipment to be able to treat tuberculosis. I think you need some kind of like a funnel or a tube or something. I don't really know what tuberculosis is or how they treat it, but I know that tubes are used in a lot of things. So he was like, damn it, I wish there was something I could do, but I can't treat you at the hospital. Not enough tubes. So, I don't know, I guess you'll probably just have to come back to my house and sleep in my bed with me. And Elena said, oh, actually, I don't even think I'm sick anymore. I think it went away. This was incredible. His love cured her. She was able to leave the hospital and go back home to her family. But George knew that if he didn't keep giving her an appropriate amount of love constantly all the time, she would get sick again from being so sad. So he wrote her so many letters, and he would plan out their wedding in them and tell her how much he loved her so much. And this made her so happy that she couldn't even write him letters back because she was paralyzed by how much she was in love with him. George wanted her to come back to the hospital because at this point, he hadn't seen her in like 3 days. She was probably already dying from missing him a lot, but fate was trying to keep them apart. She told him she couldn't get to the hospital because in a tragic coincidence, her car wasn't working. But George wasn't about to let that get in the way of true love. He would do anything for her. She's so hot. So he sent a cab to her house to go pick her up and bring her to the hospital. But in another cruel attempt by God to keep them apart, it was a cab company that she didn't like. She said she didn't trust them because it was run by gringos, so she didn't want to use it. Yeah, she was racist, by the way. It was devastating. He only wanted to be with her, and he knew that she wanted the same. Even though she never said it, it was just because she was shy, and there was also a language barrier. So she'd sometimes get the phrase, "I love you," confused with the phrase, "I don't want you to be around me anymore." They didn't need to speak in words. Their love spoke louder than all those little miscommunications. Despite all the obstacles, George persevered. He wasn't gonna give up on love. If she couldn't go to him, he was gonna go to her. He showed up at her house with a bunch of flowers and expensive jewelry and clothes and stuff. And then he saw her. And he was right. She was dying from not being able to see him enough. Her evil family told him that they had been taking her to a different doctor. What were they doing? They were trying to kill her. And he said to them, "You idiots! She doesn't need a doctor. She's not sick. She's just sad." It was devastating. He had to call this other doctor and find out what the heck was going on. And that doctor told him that he was giving her medicine and treatment for her condition. He was a fucking dumbass. She didn't need medicine. She needed to be loved by a 63-year-old man. This poor, sexy 21-year-old Latina girl was suffering. She was dying. And the family didn't even care. They said they were gonna keep taking her to this idiot doctor because they wanted her to keep living and that George was being a pervert. They told George that they didn't want him around anymore. This made him so sad that he got Bright's disease from being sad. He still never gave up though. Her family might not want him around, but he does. And Elena clearly does too, because she's not saying it. And that, she's scared to say it. She's scared of love, of how much she loves him. But they were soulmates, and George knew that. And nothing would keep them apart. Not while he still has his gun. So he had to go over to their house again. But when he got there, no one was there. And he thought, this is odd. Usually they live here. What's going on? So he went and checked in all the windows, and all the furniture was gone too. Now he was really confused because he was pretty sure that they had furniture. So he went around to all the neighbors and asked them where the family was. And the neighbors all just kind of said, oh, what? They're not there? That's weird. That's strange. I don't know anything about that. Goodbye. It all seemed hopeless. And all the neighbors just kept saying the same thing, that they didn't know where she was, and he was getting really bored. So he pulled out his gun, and then one of the neighbors said, oh, fuck. Okay, yeah, they moved. They moved across town. Here's her address. I'm sorry, they told us not to tell you. Please don't hurt me. This was great. Now they could reunite. He tracked down her new house, and he would not rest until she was cured and they could be together. He found her, and he said to her, my darling, let me help you. I can cure you. And then he reached out towards her boobs because that was where the sickness was. And she replied, oh no, don't need to do that. I'm fine. Look at me. I'm feeling so good. It's not necessary, thank you. And he said, are you sure? You seem like you're still kind of sick. You're coughing and stuff. I think you should really let me touch your boobs because that's where the sickness is. And she said, yeah, I feel so much better. Don't do that. I'm just coughing. I'm just kind of coughing like for fun now. He was relieved that she was feeling better, and he hoped that she would keep feeling better, but still, he feared the worst. And soon, his worst nightmare would come true. At this point, I'm gonna do a cliffhanger. I'm metaphorically leaving you all on the edge of a cliff. I'm edging you, as they say. And we're gonna go to Trever time. It's Trever time. Take it away, Trever.
She dipped me on the sweet and low, 'cause she knows I need an excuse to sneak my needle, yo. My favorite barista's thick. My favorite barista's thick. My favorite barista's thick. You're my favorite barista.
Oh, hi there. It must be Trever time. Whatever Katie's talking about, she's probably right. I don't really read those kinds of books. Romance really isn't my bag, and she's really into that kind of stuff, so I'm just gonna take her word for everything that's in there. But I am an expert in what I'm about to talk about, which is this ad. I am an expert in this ad. And this is an ad for Storyaverse. Storyaverse is a free app that's actually doing something new. I'm a fan of animation. You could tell because I'm bad at it. And I'm genuinely impressed with what they pulled off here. They hooked up writers with animators from a huge variety of styles, from 3D to traditional to anime. They put these exclusive short stories together with punches of animation throughout. So the shorts are paired up with text, and it all blends together as you scroll down seamlessly. Think like a graphic novel that moves. The pacing is really good, and there's a lot of polish to each title. I'm actually excited to see what they put up next. Now, there's a ton of genres on here already, so if you're into comedy or sci-fi or action, you're really gonna like what they've got on here. So go check them out on Google Play or the Apple Store, and you can give them a follow on Instagram and TikTok to see upcoming stories.
Hi, we're back. Sorry for edging you. You can come now. Anyways, Elena died on October 25th, 1931, and her greedy, evil family took all of the jewelry and clothes and stuff that George had bought for her. He asked them to give it all back, but they refused. But luckily, they were really poor. So he just threatened to make them pay for all of it, and then they gave it back to him. Because they couldn't. Because they were so poor, they couldn't afford to pay him back. And another good thing about them being really poor was they couldn't afford to do any like funeral stuff, so they had George do all of it. And he also made them let him live in their house in Elena's old room. He said, "You're poor, remember? So I can do whatever I want." And he could. They had to let him because they were poor. He got to work on the funeral stuff, and after a whole 6 months, he had built her an entire mausoleum. He had to get permission from the state of Florida and from her family to be able to do this, but they were cool with it because they were poor and he had a gun. And as a bonus, this meant that now he could go inside the tomb and do normal things that weren't bad without anyone watching. He would spend almost all his time in there with Elena, who ever since her death had been a dead buried corpse. He said he loved the way she smelled, and to me that really shows how much he loves her. Because I've always heard that dead bodies smell bad, but because it was her, he liked it. I don't know, I just think that's really cute. And now, before any of you go thinking that this is weird or crazy or that Elena was actually dead, you're wrong. And George said that he actually died once when he was in India. Yeah, he died, but then he woke up. And he realized that he was actually just sleeping. And it was a dream, it wasn't real. I mean, okay, like Elena was actually dead. And he probably knew that, sort of. But she was gonna wake up. And he was talking to her all the time. So to anyone who thinks he's insane, then explain how could he be talking to people who weren't there? Would a crazy man be experiencing delusions? Think about that. So anyways, he would visit her every day until a bunch of hooligan kids started throwing rocks at him because the cemetery was in a really public area. So in his words, it was easy for the innumerable children to lay siege on me. He was really scared of these kids, so he just had to lock himself in the tomb with Elena. Because what else is he gonna do? Go home? No, he didn't feel like it. The kids kept being really rude, so at this point he decided the best way to deal with this was to finally move Elena out of the tomb and take her to his house, which was a plane. He was building another plane, by the way. It was a different plane than last time though. And Elena was so excited, but he said to her, "I need you to not tell anybody that I'm taking you home with me." And she said, "You don't even have to worry about that. No one else is having the same delusions as you." He moved her out of the cemetery, which was a sort of tricky and complicated process. And I'm not really gonna talk about it that much because it's not that interesting. But basically, he just wrapped her up in a blanket and put her in a wagon and then threw her over the fence. So this story is long and I'm tired. So I'm gonna make Trever talk again. Here's Trever. It's Trever. Here he comes. He's gonna get ya.
Time, John Deere stock goes up when I buy a new toy. Buckle in the keg and shift the rig to destroy.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. It must be Trever time. So this wasn't in the script, but I guess Katie needs to take a break or something. That's cool. Since that's happening, everybody remember to like and subscribe. And I actually am going to take this time to feed my cats, because I don't think I did that today. So, thanks guys.
Hi, I'm wearing a different outfit, but don't worry, I'm okay. So George broke Elena out of the cemetery and took her to live with him in the plane that he was building. And now they can finally be together in peace. Never again will some kids throw rocks at him, unless they find him and start throwing rocks at him again. And they will. But for now, everything was really good and they were happy. George had achieved every man's dream of bagging a hot Latina. So he took her in and he carefully unscrewed her casket. And she was beautiful. But unfortunately, she was ugly because she had been dead in the dirt for 18 months. So now she looked really gross and that sucked. So George vowed that he would make her hot again. He undressed her and started washing off her slimy body. And luckily, her boobs were still there. They weren't great, but they were there. He wanted to grab them, but he didn't want to make his hands all slimy. So he soaked her in the bath to get all that slime off. He describes more about how slimy and decayed her body was, but that's yucky, so I don't care. There was just so much slime. He had to wash her so many times. She got slimed real bad. Once he had washed her and dried her off, she was almost sort of pretty. So now he just had to examine her. He had to be very thorough. He had to examine her a lot, everywhere. You have to do that if you're trying to preserve a body. You have to look at it and touch it and lick it and put your mouth on it, because that's how you make it beautiful. So while he was doing all that, she spoke to him and said, "You probably don't even love me anymore because I'm slimy." And he said, "Oh, come on, bitch, I love you so much. I think I love you even more now. And you're way more chill about stuff, and I can like touch you, and that's cool." And then George looked into her dead eyes, and he kissed her dry lips, and he blew air into her mouth so that her chest would rise up and look bigger. He just saw her, and he was so in love. He immediately went and put a wedding dress on her. And in his words, "She looked so wonderful now. I could not resist the wondrous spell, and trembling with burning love, I sank gently into her coffin and kissed her as if she were alive." And then they were married. He slept with her in the coffin all night, but in the morning, he did have to go to work. And he was thinking all throughout the day, fuck, why did I go to work? I hate this. My job sucks and it's stupid and boring. I want to go home and kiss my dead girl. But luckily, he would soon get fired from his job for his unusual behavior. And like, okay, I guess you would think he's being weird if you've never been in love before. But still, now he had all the time in the world to take care of his dead wife and build his plane. Which was really good timing, because Elena was decaying pretty bad, and also the US government took the tires off of his plane because they thought he might be a Nazi. I mean, the plane, it didn't have any wings on it, so it wouldn't work anyways, but they had to take the tires just to be safe. I'm not sure if George was a Nazi, but that's what the government thought. And now Elena was starting to look pretty fucked up. She like had bugs on her and her skin was really bad. She was in the process of becoming not hot, which would render her useless. Something had to be done. Fast. So George started wrapping up parts of her body in gauze soaked in formalin to slow down the decay, and he'd also put olive oil on her, and I don't know what that was for. But he had to do this as fast as he could, because if Elena woke up and saw that she was gross, she would hate that. And he didn't want to make her sad. He loves her. George worked extremely hard to make her beautiful again. And he did a pretty good job. He said he had seen alive people who were uglier than this decaying corpse. He tied her bones together with piano wire and he gave her glass eyes. And when her hair started to fall out, he was able to make a wig out of Elena's actual hair that he just stole from her mom. He filled her chest with rags to make it look good for medical reasons. And the whole time he kept putting wax on her. He was covering her with wax. And after all this, she looked exactly like how she did when she was alive. It was actually incredible. Like, you'd never be able to tell that she was actually a dead girl who is mostly made of wax now. She looked completely like a person. Here's a picture of her. Tell me that's not an alive person. She doesn't even look scary at all. She looks exactly the same. And all of the news coverage at the time they also said that she looks the same. And they were right, because she does. It was also later discovered that he put like a tube in her pussy. The reason for this is unclear. Some people think he was f***ing the tube, but he says that he wasn't. But at the end of the tube, there was a little cotton ball that had some cum on it. So I think he was f***ing the tube. But I mean, who cares? They were in love. They were married. Is it illegal to have sex with your wife? Is it? I don't know. Is that bad? Because I didn't know that. But at some point, pretty soon after George took her home with him, she stopped talking to him. And he had no idea why. Like, maybe she was mad at him, or she was just grumpy, or she fell asleep again, or maybe she was hungry, so he started feeding her. Maybe it would get her to talk to him again. And also, when she was alive, he saw her eating food sometimes, so she probably liked doing that. It was really sweet of him to do that for her. Like, that level of care, to take care of somebody that much, to put in that effort, I don't know, it's just like, it's really admirable to me. So he would feed her different types of food, and he could tell if she liked the food if her body absorbed it. And if she didn't like the food, her body would expel it. And if the mood was right, if they were feeling a little sexy, he'd even give her a little wine. He'd pour it in her mouth and then blow into her mouth to get it to go down into her stomach. Try this with your girlfriend and see if it's sexy or not, and let me know. So even though she looked really good now, he decided to make a plaster cast of her body just in case. And now, I know what you're thinking. Why would he even have to do that? She looked good. And yeah, I'm thinking that too. She doesn't scare me even a little bit, and she looks like a person. But he just wanted to be safe. On the off chance that this dead body would decompose, he wanted to have a more permanent version. But obviously, he didn't end up having to use it. Him and dead Elena spent 7 amazing years together. Even though during that time, those kids from the cemetery found him again and started throwing rocks at him. But other than that, everything was perfect. He had stayed by her side, protecting her and keeping her so beautiful. And it paid off. After 5 years, she woke up and started talking to him again. For seemingly no reason, one day she just said to him, "Hey, I've come back to stay with you for a little while and keep you company." And George said, "Oh, yay, yippee, I missed you, that's cool." And Elena said back, "Yeah, I don't want to get up right now and, walk around or do anything because, I'm tired from being dead. So I'm going to sit here." And he said, "That makes sense. Yeah, get rest. It was such good news to know for sure that she was actually definitely alive. Like, thank God he wasn't some insane guy fucking a completely dead girl in her pussy tube for 5 years. So Elena would talk to him pretty often now. And she said a lot of stuff that was boring, but sometimes she'd say something cool or useful. One day she surprised him, just totally panicked, and said, "Hey, you have to move my body. I have a feeling that somebody's gonna find it and they're gonna think you're weird." George said, "Darling, you're hysterical. No one's gonna think I'm weird." And she said, "I know, it's crazy, but I just have this feeling that someone will think you're weird if they find out that I'm here." George assumed that she was just on her lady period or something, but sometimes women aren't always wrong, because Elena's sister would come to George and tell him someone has broken into the cemetery and tampered with Elena's coffin. We gotta go check that out. They went to the cemetery together and she asked him to open the coffin. And George said, "No, I'm pretty sure that I don't want to do that." And Elena's sister said, "Why? No, you're gonna open it. Open it right now. What are you talking about?" And he said, "Okay, yeah, so the thing is, she isn't in the coffin. No, she's with me. She's in my plane. I'm building a plane, not because I'm a Nazi. Don't go thinking that it's some kind of Nazi plane. Don't go telling the government that. I'm not a Nazi, so you're wrong about that. But anyways, Elena's in my house, and don't worry, it's okay, she's still pretty." Now, Elena's fucking insane sister demanded that George take her to the plane and show her Elena's body, because she didn't believe him. So they went there, and she saw Elena's body, and it was all true. She was pretty. The sister said, "Oh my God, Jesus Christ, put her back. You psycho, is that a pussy tube?" And George said, "Oh, is it? Is that a pussy tube? Wow. Huh. I don't know how that got there. Yeah, I don't think I'll put her back. I'll think about it though." Then her sister got really pissed off for some reason and stormed out of the plane. So George looked over at her husband, because the fellas will understand. And he said, "Hey, what's her problem?" And the husband said, "I don't know what to do with her. She crazy." That's a quote from the husband that is from George's book. That's what he said the husband said. She crazy. Now this bitch sister told George that he needed to put the body back in the tomb or else she'd call the police and have him arrested. So George was like, "I don't want to do either of those things." And then the sister fucking called the police and got him arrested. Because I guess it's illegal to be in love now. I don't know, maybe. A policeman showed up at George's house plane, and George said, "What? Is it illegal to be in love now?" And the cop said, "No, that's fine to do, but you do need to have a permit to be able to keep a dead body and have sex with it." And George said, "Well, what if I'm not having sex with it?" And the cop was like, "Well, you are. Why wouldn't you be? But you don't have a permit, so I'm gonna have to take you to jail. That's why I'm arresting you." And George said, "I'm not building a plane because I'm a Nazi. It's not a Nazi plane. I just wanted to build a plane." And the cop said, "Okay, that's good to know." So George followed the cop into his car, and as they were leaving, he saw a hearse pull up and take Elena's body into it. And this was fucked up. Who do they think they are, just taking a girl's dead body for themselves? He tried to run over and stop them, but the cop held him back and he said, "It's okay, don't worry. They're just taking it to a funeral home so that it'll be safe for now. And then after your court case is done and you get the permit, you can have her back." The cop was really nice and he was like, "Hey, I think you're a good guy. I don't think you did anything wrong. And I'm really glad that you're not a Nazi. I think those guys are bad." He still had to be taken to jail though. And while he was there, he had a lot of hot Latinas visiting him. This guy was a fucking legend. But he was still in love with Elena, so he turned them all down. And I mean, he was crazy to do that. Just kidding. This guy wasn't crazy at all. When the court date arrived, the first witness to take the stand was Elena's sister. She got up there and she basically just said, "Hey, this is fucked. This is crazy. I mean, he stole my sister's dead body and he took it home with him. And you guys are all acting like this is some cute love story. Why, it's making me feel insane. Why doesn't anybody think this is weird?" And George said, "No, it's normal, actually." The jury took note of this. The second witness was just some guy, and he got up there and said, "You know, I didn't have a problem with it at first, but then there were like 10 times that I looked through the window and I saw George just dancing with the corpse. And that's when I started to think it might be kind of weird because I thought he was just fucking her. I didn't know they were dancing." Finally, it was George's turn to take the stand. He told the court how much he loved her, how he had stayed by her side every moment, how much he had cared for her more than anything. He had spent over $3,000 taking care of her during this time, which calculated with inflation is infinity dollars. It was the most moving thing I'd ever heard of. And the jury reached its verdict. George was guilty. I mean, the fact that he was dancing with her was kind of the deciding factor. People thought that he was just fucking her, but dancing was a bit gay. And gayness was not cool during this time. Now it's cool. George was sent to jail, and Elena's body was put up on display in a museum where hundreds of people saw it. People looked at her and they said, "Wow, she looks so normal." George was devastated because he wanted to go see how normal she looked too, although he was eventually acquitted because the statute of limitations had expired. He did a stupid little jump because he was happy. And he said, "Oh boy, I can't wait to see my hot corpse again." But while he was in jail, her evil family took her body back and moved it to an unmarked grave, and he didn't know where it was. So that's it. His love was gone. Forever. Everything he cared about, all his hard work, it's gone. And they were separated. All because her evil family is bad and they hate love. Never once in all of history has there been another story of a man with love so deep and pure and ethical. But all the great stories of these star-crossed lovers eventually come to a tragic end. Their love was enchanting, and the story captivated the nation. Everyone adored it because there was nothing wrong with it. Articles after articles kept coming out about this and just detailing the true nature of that kind of love that not a lot of people will ever understand, let alone experience. There was one article titled, "Man's Love for Beautiful Girl Discovered After Death," where they describe him as a romantic old man who believed his love for a woman was stronger than death itself. And they did a good job of describing the care and precision and work he put into preserving her body and making it look exactly like how it did, and making her look like a person who was alive. The article said it was skillfully made and faithful to reproductions of pictures of the girl. And you've seen what a good job he did. You know, that's true. That shit's faithful as hell. She looked exactly the same. Like, it's uncanny. Not uncanny in a way like where it's creepy and unsettling, but like uncanny like in the way that like she looks so alike. She looks so normal that it's creepy and unsettling how good she looks. Well, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed this video and you feel happier now that you know this story. And because we're dedicated to bringing you only the best quality information, our only source for this was George's book that he wrote himself. It's his book that he wrote from his own perspective, and it was published and somebody paid him for it. I do actually have to say it's a really good book. It's like 70 pages. It's awesome because it was so cute. Well guys, thanks for watching. I hope you all feel really happy now. If you think I'm pretty, leave a comment and let me know. And if you don't think I'm pretty, leave a comment and let me know what I could be doing better. Thank you. Thanks.